Welcome to Verge File.
Support the channel by liking, commenting, and subscribing. I promise even more interesting stories. The first time I ignored her call, it felt strange. The 10th time, it felt like freedom. For months, I had been the one reaching out, sending texts that got short replies hours later, making plans she might be free for, giving compliments that were met with a half smile or a distracted thanks. Every time, I told myself maybe she was just busy, maybe she had a lot on her plate. But the truth was simple. I was chasing someone who had no interest in being caught. Her name was Vanessa. We'd met at a friend's birthday party, one of those noisy rooftop gatherings where you have to lean in to hear each other. She laughed at my jokes that night, touched my arm when she spoke. It felt electric, like maybe I'd finally found someone worth the effort. But over the next few weeks, that electricity faded into static. I was the one planning dinners, sending flowers, showing up to her art gallery opening with a gift I'd picked out weeks in advance. She'd thank me, then slip away to talk to someone else. She never asked about my day, never remembered the little details I told her. One night, I was sitting in my car outside her apartment. We'd planned to grab coffee. I'd driven 40 minutes, only for her to text me. Sorry, something came up. Rain check? No explanation, no apology beyond that. I stared at my phone, my hands tightening around the steering wheel, and something inside me finally snapped. That was the night I decided to disappear. I didn't send a goodbye text. I didn't block her. I just stopped showing up, stopped texting, stopped calling. The silence between us became my boundary, my line in the sand. At first, she didn't notice. A week passed, then two. Then my phone lit up with her name. Hey, been a while. You okay? I let it ring out. Then came more messages. Where have you been? Did I do something? Call me, please. By the third week, she was calling every day, sometimes late at night. The same woman who could barely find time to see me was now filling my voicemail with questions, her voice sharper each time. And here's the thing, I didn't feel guilty. Not at all. I'd given everything I had. Time, attention, patience. She'd given me rejection in a dozen subtle forms. Ghosting her wasn't petty. It was survival. What I didn't expect was how far she'd go to pull me back in, and how, the moment I ignored her, the real truth about her life started to surface, piece by piece, like a shadow growing larger in the corner of the room. And soon I realized, I hadn't just walked away from a woman. I'd walked away from a storm I didn't even know was coming. The first real crack in her composure came on a Thursday night. My phone buzzed with her name again, and for a moment, I considered answering, just to hear what she'd say. But I didn't. I let it go to voicemail, and a minute later, the notification popped up. Her voice was different this time. Not sharp, not annoyed. It was tight, almost trembling. I need to talk to you. Please, it's important. Then a pause, like she wanted to add more, but couldn't find the words. I deleted it without listening twice. Over the next few days, the messages got stranger. She wasn't just asking where I was or why I wasn't talking to her. She was apologizing, saying things like, I didn't mean to push you away, and I know I wasn't fair to you. Then came the one that really caught my attention. I'm in trouble. I think someone's following me. I'll admit, that one made me stop. Vanessa wasn't the type to play the damsel in distress. If anything, she wore her independence like armor. But I also knew she had a flair for the dramatic when she wanted something. Still, I didn't respond. Not yet. By the end of the week, she escalated. A mutual friend texted me. Hey, Vanessa's been asking everyone about you. She said you're ignoring her, and she doesn't know why. I didn't reply to that either. Then, 2 days later, I came home to find something strange, an envelope on my doorstep. No name, no return address. Inside was a single photo, me, taken from across the street, walking into my apartment building. On the back, in messy handwriting, were the words, "Talk to her." I stared at it for a long time, the edges of the photo curling slightly in my hands. I couldn't tell if it was a threat or a plea. Either way, it told me one thing. This was no longer just about ghosting someone. Somehow, I'd stumbled into something bigger. The next morning, I finally broke my silence. I texted her 3 words. What's going on? Her reply was instant. Meet me. Same cafe where we first talked. Noon. Something in me hesitated, but curiosity is a dangerous thing. I needed to know why she was suddenly desperate, why my absence had pushed her from indifference to panic. When I walked into that cafe the next day, she was already there, sitting in the corner with her hands wrapped tightly around a coffee cup. Her eyes darted to the door the second I entered. "You have no idea," she said, before I could even sit down, "what you've gotten yourself into." She wasn't wrong. I just didn't know yet how deep it went. She didn't waste time with small talk. The moment I sat down, she leaned forward, her voice low but urgent. "I think someone's watching me," she said, her fingers tightening around the coffee cup. "And now, I think they're watching you too." I wanted to laugh it off, but the photo on my doorstep flashed in my mind. That wasn't just paranoia. That was proof. I asked her who she thought it was. She glanced toward the window before answering. "It started about a month ago. Same black SUV parked near my building. Same guy at the grocery store." At first, I thought I was imagining it. But then, she stopped, her gaze dropping to the table. "But then what?" I pressed. Her jaw clenched. "Someone broke into my apartment. Nothing was stolen, but they moved things. Just small things. My dresser drawer. A picture frame. Like they wanted me to know they'd been there." I sat back, trying to connect the dots. Vanessa had never mentioned enemies, and she wasn't the type to dabble in anything shady. Or at least, that's what I thought. She leaned closer. "I think it's connected to my ex." That got my attention. I didn't know much about him, just that their breakup had been messy. "You think he's behind this?" Her eyes met mine, sharp and certain. "I know he is. And when you stopped answering me, I think he decided you were a problem." The logical part of me wanted to walk away. This wasn't my fight. But the other part, the part that couldn't ignore the way her hands trembled, kept me in that seat. I asked why she hadn't gone to the police. She gave a short, bitter laugh. "You think they'll take me seriously? No forced entry, no witnesses, just me sounding paranoid? They'd file it and forget it." She slid something across the table, another envelope. Inside were more photos. Some of her, some of me, all taken from a distance. Different days, different locations. Whoever this was, they weren't just watching her. They were tracking both of us. "You ghosted me at the worst possible time," she said, her voice almost breaking. "And now, I think we're both in danger." I wanted to tell her she was being dramatic, but the evidence was right there between us. Leaving that cafe, I told myself I'd help her figure this out. Not because I owed her, but because I needed to know who was pulling these strings. What I didn't realize was that by agreeing, I'd just stepped into a game I couldn't control. And the rules, they were about to get a lot darker. That night, I couldn't shake the feeling of being watched. Every creak in my apartment sounded sharper. Every shadow outside my window seemed heavier. I told myself it was just paranoia creeping in from Vanessa's story, but deep down, I knew better. The next morning, I decided to test it. I left my apartment earlier than usual, walked 2 blocks in the wrong direction, then doubled back. At first, nothing seemed out of place until I noticed it. A black SUV, idling across the street. I didn't look directly at it, just caught it in my peripheral vision. Tinted windows, no plates on the front. My gut tightened. I crossed the street, heading toward a busy coffee shop. When I came out 10 minutes later, the SUV was gone. I called Vanessa, my voice low. I saw it. She didn't ask what I meant. "We need to meet again. Tonight." We met at her place. She lived in a 3rd-floor apartment, the kind with a narrow staircase and peeling paint on the railing. Inside, she had pulled the curtains tight. Every lamp in the living room was on, casting long shadows across the floor. "I've been keeping track," she said, pulling out a small notebook. Each page was filled with dates, times, and descriptions, sightings of the SUV, places she'd noticed someone tailing her. "It's not random. They're following a pattern." I flipped through it, noticing that some entries overlapped with places I'd been. This wasn't just her stalker, it was ours. I asked her again why she thought her ex was involved. She hesitated, then went to a drawer and pulled out a small flash drive. "Because of this." I turned it over in my hand. "What's on it?" She swallowed hard. "Something I shouldn't have. Something he doesn't want anyone to see." Before I could press her for details, a noise outside made us both freeze, the sound of tires crunching gravel. She darted to the window, just barely moving the curtain. "It's him," she whispered. I looked, but the street was empty by the time I got there. No SUV, no headlights. Still, her fear wasn't an act. She grabbed my arm. "If we're going to stop this, you need to help me." Please. I didn't give her an answer that night. I left her apartment with the flash drive in my pocket, the weight of it pressing against me like a secret I wasn't ready to carry. Walking back to my place, I kept checking over my shoulder. And that's when I realized, sometimes you don't see the danger until it's right behind you. Literally. Because that black SUV? It was following me now. At first, I tried to convince myself it was coincidence. Maybe the SUV just happened to be heading in the same direction. But when I turned left down a quiet side street, and it followed without hesitation, the illusion shattered. The driver kept just enough distance to make it seem casual, but every time I glanced back, the shape of that dark vehicle loomed like a shadow that refused to break. I could feel my pulse in my throat. I didn't go straight home. Instead, I cut through an alley behind a row of restaurants, weaving between dumpsters and delivery trucks. I waited, pressed against a brick wall, holding my breath. A minute later, the SUV rolled slowly past the alley entrance, engine humming low. No pause, no horn, just a silent glide. They knew. I walked the long way home, avoiding direct routes, and when I finally stepped into my apartment, the relief hit me like a wave, but it didn't last. I realized then that I'd brought the danger closer to my door. The flash drive sat on my kitchen counter where I dropped it earlier. I picked it up, turning it over in my hand again. Whatever was on it was valuable enough for someone to follow Vanessa for weeks, and now, to follow me. I powered up my laptop. The drive was encrypted, asking for a password. No hint, no clue. Just a blinking cursor, mocking me. I called Vanessa. She didn't answer. For the next hour, I paced my apartment, phone in hand. Finally, just after midnight, she called back. Her voice was sharp, panicked. Don't try to open it. They'll know. They'll know? How? I asked. It's not just a file. It's connected. If you open it without the right access, they'll know exactly where you are. The line went dead before I could ask anything else. Sleep was impossible. I kept thinking about the SUV, about the fact that someone had been close enough to follow me through half the city. Around 3 a.m., I heard it, the low, slow hum of an engine outside my building. I didn't look out the window right away. I just stood there, frozen, staring at the wall. Finally, I moved the curtain just enough to see. The SUV was parked across the street. No lights, no movement, just there. I stayed by the window until sunrise, my mind racing with questions and no answers. That morning, I made a decision. If they were going to watch me, then I'd give them something worth watching. But first, I needed to find out exactly what was on that flash drive. And for that, I'd have to break the one rule Vanessa had given me. I waited until the following night. Not because I wanted to, but because I needed to see if they'd still be there. They were. The same SUV. Same spot. Engine running just long enough every hour to remind me it wasn't abandoned. Whoever was inside was patient. They weren't going to make the first move. They were waiting for me to break. By the second night, I realized patience wasn't their only weapon. It was fear. Every shadow in my apartment seemed heavier. Every knock on the wall or creak in the floorboards made me wonder if they'd already gotten in. So I stopped hiding. I took the flash drive and walked out my front door like I was heading to a late-night coffee run. I didn't look at the SUV, but I felt it. The slow ignition, the steady roll into motion. Instead of heading for a coffee shop, I took a detour into a 24-hour printing and internet place downtown. The kind of spot where cameras barely worked and the staff didn't care who you were as long as you paid cash. The computer I chose was ancient, the kind that groaned every time it loaded a web page. I plugged in the flash drive, heart hammering in my chest. The password screen came up again. I tried something simple, Vanessa's birthday. Access denied. Then, before I could try again, the screen flickered. A new window popped up, black with white text. Unauthorized access detected. Location logged. Every hair on my body stood on end. I yanked the flash drive out and shut the computer down, scanning the store through the reflection in the dusty window. The SUV wasn't outside anymore. I stepped out, and that's when I saw it. Parked a block down, engine running. A man stood outside it, leaning against the hood like he had all the time in the world. His face was half hidden under a baseball cap, but his posture screamed confidence, control. He didn't look at me directly, just glanced in my direction, smirked, and climbed back into the vehicle. The message was clear: we know where you are now. I didn't go home. I spent the next several hours walking aimlessly, ducking into crowded places, checking behind me every few minutes. But no matter how far I went, I couldn't shake the feeling that they were always just out of sight. By dawn, I knew I couldn't keep reacting. If I stayed on defense, I'd lose, and whatever was on that drive would never see daylight. That morning, as the sun bled into the horizon, I made a promise to myself. I wasn't just going to open it. I was going to find out who they were and take everything from them before they even realized I'd made my move. The next step wasn't about running. It was about turning the hunt back on them. I started with the basics. I wrote down every time I'd seen the SUV, every street corner, every timestamp I could remember. Then I layered Vanessa's notes over mine. The overlap was eerie, like we'd been moving through the city on invisible strings, pulled by the same unseen hand. But one address caught my attention. A dead-end street in the industrial district. Both of us had been there on different days, different times. The question was why? I headed there in the middle of the afternoon, figuring they'd be less likely to tail me when the streets were busy. The district was quiet, though too quiet. Empty warehouses with boarded-up windows, chain-link fences topped with rusted barbed wire. Halfway down the block, I spotted it. Not the SUV, a small, unmarked building with only one door and no windows. There was a camera above the entrance, but it wasn't pointed at the street. It was aimed inward, toward the door itself. I didn't get closer. I just kept walking, memorizing every detail. That night, I called Vanessa again. This time, she answered on the first ring. I found something, I told her. Her voice dropped to a whisper. You shouldn't be looking for them. If they think you're a threat. They already do, I cut in. What's in that building? She went silent for a few seconds. That's where they store things. Files. Videos. Records. It's not just about me. It's about everyone they've been watching. I asked her if she could get me inside. She didn't say yes, but she didn't say no. Instead, she told me to meet her tomorrow night, at a location she'd texted me just before. The next 24 hours felt like a countdown. I barely ate, barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that man leaning against the SUV, smirking like he knew exactly how this would end. The meeting spot she sent was another warehouse, this one abandoned. When I got there, Vanessa was already waiting inside, pacing in the dim glow of a single hanging light. She handed me a folded piece of paper. This is the entry code. You'll only have one chance. I looked at her. Why me? Because they're not watching you as closely as they're watching me, she said. Yet. Before I could reply, a loud metallic clang echoed through the space. We both froze. It wasn't the wind. It wasn't the building settling. It was footsteps. Slow, deliberate, coming closer. Vanessa's eyes widened. She mouthed one word, run. The sound of those footsteps echoed like gunshots in the empty warehouse. I didn't think. I grabbed Vanessa's wrist and pulled her toward the back, scanning for any way out. The place was a maze of rusted machinery and broken pallets. Every shadow looked like it was ready to move, every dark corner like it was hiding someone. The footsteps didn't speed up. They stayed slow, steady, confident. Whoever it was knew we had nowhere to go. Vanessa pointed toward a small side door half hidden behind a stack of crates. It was chained from the inside, but the lock was old and brittle. One hard kick and it snapped. Cold night air hit my face as we stumbled out into a narrow alley. We didn't run straight away. I knew if we bolted, we'd be too easy to follow. Instead, we stuck to the edges, weaving through alleys and side streets until the warehouse district faded into the city's neon sprawl. Only when we were blocks away did Vanessa finally speak. They weren't supposed to find us this fast. I didn't ask who they were. I had a feeling she wouldn't tell me yet. Instead, I asked the only question that mattered. Do we still have a shot at getting into that building? She nodded. But it's going to be riskier now. They'll be expecting something. We ducked into a small, all-night diner, sitting in a booth at the very back. Vanessa spread a crumpled map on the table, tracing a route with her finger. This is the service entrance. Less security, but it's monitored. The code I gave you will get you through the first lock, but after that, you're on your own. I studied her face as she spoke. She wasn't scared, not exactly. She was determined, but there was something else there too, something like resignation. Vanessa, I said quietly, once we go in, there's no going back. You know that, right? Her eyes met mine. I made peace with that a long time ago. We sat there for a few more minutes, neither of us touching the coffee we'd ordered. Outside, the street was empty. Too empty. I saw it first. The SUV creeping past the diner. The same one that had been outside my apartment, outside the internet cafe. Vanessa didn't look, didn't move. She just said, "We leave separately. They'll expect us to be together." It felt wrong, splitting up now. But she was right. If they caught us both, the game would be over before it began. I watched her slip out the back, disappearing into the night like she'd done this 100 times before. Then I stepped out the front, straight into the freezing wind, and directly into the path of the man in the baseball cap. The man in the baseball cap didn't rush me. He just stood there, blocking the sidewalk, his hands in his jacket pockets like we were about to have a casual chat. "Long night?" he asked, his tone almost friendly. I didn't answer. I stepped sideways, ready to go around him, but he matched my movement perfectly. The smile on his face didn't reach his eyes. "You've been busy," he said. "That's a problem." Something in me snapped. I'd been running, hiding, reacting for days, but not tonight. I squared my shoulders. "If you're here to threaten me, get on with it." He tilted his head like I'd surprised him. "I'm not here to threaten you. I'm here to make you an offer." That was the hook. Make me curious. I didn't take it. I turned to leave, but his next words froze me mid-step. "We know about the building, and we know you're planning to go inside." My pulse kicked hard. I kept my voice even. "You're wasting your time. I don't know what you're talking about." He smiled again, like a teacher humoring a child. "You're not in control here. Vanessa's not in control. You think you're helping her, but she's the reason you're in danger." That hit harder than I wanted to admit. Before I could respond, a car horn blared from down the street. The man glanced over his shoulder, then stepped back. "Consider this your warning. Walk away now, and you'll live. Keep going, and you won't." He turned and vanished into the alley before I could decide whether to follow. The rest of the night was a blur of movement, switching buses, walking aimless blocks, anything to make sure I wasn't being followed. By the time I got back to my apartment, it was nearly dawn. On my kitchen table was a folded sheet of paper. I hadn't left it there. My stomach dropped. Inside, written in neat block letters, was a single sentence. "They'll be waiting at the service entrance." No signature. No explanation. I didn't know if it was from Vanessa or from them. Either way, it meant tomorrow night was a trap, and we were walking right into it. Still, I couldn't walk away. Not now. Whatever was inside that building, it was the reason they'd been circling me like vultures. If they wanted me to be afraid, they were going to be disappointed. Because tomorrow night, I wasn't just going to step into their trap. I was going to spring it. Night fell hard, the city lights flickering like distant warnings. I approached the service entrance alone, heart steady, senses sharp. The code Vanessa had given me was etched in my mind, every digit burned into memory. The keypad beeped in my ears as I entered the sequence. The lock clicked, and the door creaked open, revealing a dim corridor lined with security cameras. I moved quickly but cautiously, aware that every step could be monitored. The building smelled like metal and dust. Sounds echoed, distant footsteps, the hum of machinery. Somewhere deeper, voices murmured in a language I didn't understand. I reached a stairwell and climbed silently, floor by floor, until I found a heavy steel door. The code I'd memorized again worked, and it swung open to reveal a room filled with monitors and servers, a nerve center. Screens displayed surveillance footage from various locations, including Vanessa's apartment, my own, and the black SUV parked just outside. A cold wave ran through me. This wasn't just stalking. This was an operation. Behind the monitors stood a man, the same one from the baseball cap, eyes sharp, calculating. He didn't react to my presence at first, as if expecting me. "Welcome," he said finally, voice low. "We've been waiting for you." I kept my expression neutral. "Why are you doing this?" He smiled. "Control. Information. Power." Vanessa's ex didn't just want revenge. He wanted leverage. And we've been providing it. What's on the flash drive? Secrets. Files that could ruin lives. People who think they're untouchable aren't. We expose them. I scanned the room, searching for an escape or a way to turn the tables. Then I spotted a small keypad near the server racks. If I could trigger an alert or shut down the system, I might buy us time. As I moved toward it, The man stepped closer. You should have stayed away. Now it's too late. Suddenly, the monitors flickered, alarms blared, and the room plunged into red emergency lights. Vanessa's voice came through a speaker. Get out. Now. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed a nearby cable, yanked it free, and ran. Chaos erupted as I raced down the stairs and into the night. Behind me, I heard footsteps and shouts. The game had changed, but so had I. As I disappeared into the shadows, I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't just fighting for Vanessa anymore. I was fighting for myself. Drop it in the comments. Hit subscribe. This is where we talk about what doesn't get forgiven.